Hey guys, this is a follow-up on yesterday's video, the red Firebird. Yahooban66 had a question on how I changed the shading and the colors on like a faded out red that I'm trying to match like that. You can tint. A lot of times if you have nothing to go by, you just go by the tints that are in the formula and you can adjust them, but that takes a lot of time, a lot of spray outs. A good system when you punch in there was another question. That, by the way, is GM code 81 WA8774. When you punch that into the computer, you get a choice of a similar code from 91 to present or 85 to 2004, which is where I was. That's the Camaro and Camaro body. It's a Firebird, and I got these choices for colors, and I went with this right here. So that number there gives me a location to my color variant swatches, because the factories don't paint a car the same color twice. So I went to my solid reds, and this is what I got. The top one is the standard. This is what GM is supposed to paint the car, and what a lot of them probably were. But as that color, if it's out in the sun a lot, red fades more than any of the other colors, just about. And these were all the different shades. They don't show up as good on the camera, I don't think. This top one wasn't right on the car at all. It was this one right here, the bluer. So it's kind of a darker looking color, but it's bluer. And there was a second bluer choice. This one was more of a violet, it says on the back. So I went with this one, and it was a really good match. It blended out fine. If you butted it up to something, it probably would have been a little off, but it blended pretty sweet. And that's how I go about those. And when you pull up the formula, if you still have a little trouble with it, say you choose how much you want, then there's your tints, there's your weights, and when you measure those, and if it's a little off, say you want it a little darker, you add some black, you want it brighter, maybe take some of these out or add more red, and you can see what the predominant tints are. It's mostly red and magenta, which is like a real darker violet color. A little black and a touch of a weak white. Too much white, it would turn it pink. And that's kind of how they put those together. Okay, and Gims 110 had a pretty good question. A little too much for me to type, so I figured I'd put this on a video. In my opinion, what's the reddest red possible, and what base would you lay down first? He was thinking Viper Red. Viper Red's a very bright red. It's one of the brighter ones. Let's see, in say this deck of color swatches here, you can kind of tell. You just go through them and pick the brightest one in there. Some of those GM ones were pretty bright. What's this one? That's a Suzuki color. That's pretty bright, although it's kind of muddy. It's got maybe a lot of yellow in it. Really, your brightest red is going to be straight red tint, which is 447 bright red. That's going to be your brightest red right there. Now, the trouble with going with a straight tint is without some of the other tints in there to kind of mix with it, it's going to be really susceptible to fading. Although today's base coat clear coat jobs, the clear coat has a lot of UV protection in it. But I believe that's still why they don't just go with a straight red tint, is they got to have some others in there just to kind of keep it looking a little. A lot of reds have some yellow in them, or a little bit of white, a few other colors. There's a lot of science behind that. You get into light reflectance with photons and the whole 9 yards. But what it's all about with these products are how can it stand up to the UV rays without fading. So you'll always find a few other tints in there, and that way the factories can differentiate the base materials that these are made out of, because you can tell they fade. Each code will have a few variant chips over the years. They're going to fade in different directions. There's like There's a whole lot you can get into. There's a pretty bright red right there. That's a Honda R81. I think Honda's actually used that as a tri-stage red also, or a tinted clear coat. But yeah, there's a lot behind that, and that was a really good question. If you're doing an overall and you really want red to just pop, you can lay down a white sealer first or a white base coat. As long as you get decent coverage so it's not blotchy looking, that white will kind of come through enough to make that red just glow. I wasn't doing an overall, I was going for quick coverage, getting the job done, so I used a nice medium to dark gray primer, which was good. I could have also gone with a slightly lighter gray, either way, but if you're doing an overall and you just want it to pop, yeah, white base down first, or light gray. You may need more material, though. Red's one of the most expensive tints out there. You got to weigh all those into what you're looking to do. Hope that answered your question. That was a good one. And see you guys. Yeah, funny thing is, today I'm dealing with white. I got a piece of an airplane from down the road. It's a wing/tank, and I have to match it to a plane that's down the road. So I made a spray out. I got a code. It was a DuPont only code, 817. It was done in Imron, and I was trying to match that. And I went into the computer and pulled up a transfer, PPG transfer to that. I made a spray out. I went down there. It didn't match, but I took my white color variant swatches, all three of them, and I ended up picking a Chrysler color. I just made another spray out of that. I got to go back there, double check my match, and then I'm going to hammer this wing. It's been etch primed over bare aluminum, 2 coats of white sealer. So this thing's running. Got it inspected. They put a rejection sticker on it. The headlights were too yellowed out. So I took those into the shop. Here's a couple pictures of them. The top picture is going to be what they were. The lower picture is going to be sanded with 600. And then here they are. They have some moisture on the inside, but they're clear now. I put adhesion promoter and a couple coats of clear on there, and that brightened them right up. It worked pretty good. There's an exhaust leak that I got to fix next, and it should pass inspection after that. And it runs pretty good. I took it into work a few times. It actually rides a lot nicer than that. Yeah, so this weekend it's storm cleanup. After that almost hurricane thing we had all last week was a nor'easter. It just blew all week, so it's a pretty good mess out here. And the dog's not going to help me clean up. It's not going to do anything but just look at me. Right, Joe? Right, Joey?